Hi everybody, welcome back to the Chaotic Little Book Corner. My name's Acacia. Today I'm doing something very nerve-wracking. I am telling you my top 10. So this is the Booktube Top 10 Tag. This is started by Jason. I saw it on Amy Poole's channel. I will link both of them in the cards. So it'll be pretty close together. Maybe I'll spread it out. I'll figure it out. I'll do something. But in this video, you are going to see Jason's channel and Amy's channel up in the cards at some point. So, yes. These are my top 10 books of all time. Now, this is subject to change 95% of the time. However, the top 3 books have not changed for 2 years. Pretty solid. The top 2 books were number 1 and number 2 for the past 5 years, and then became number 2 and number 3 2 years ago when I read a different book. And if you've seen my channel for a while, you guys know what my number 1 book is, and it won't be a surprise. I'm sorry. But number 10 might be a surprise, I'll be honest. So these are my top 10 books of all time. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going in order of number 10 to number 1. So this is not in order of least to most enjoyed. This is just number 10 to number 1. Very different conversation. Yeah. I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. This feels so final. And if you are watching this on any time that is not March 2019, it may have changed. It is very subject to have changed. So, yeah. Okay. Number 10. You guys might be surprised, but I loved this book. This is Sex, Lies, and Handwriting, and it is by Michelle Dresbold. This book, I adore this book. It helps that I read it while I was in the hospital. That helps because I really connected with it. But this talks about some really interesting psychology that comes out in your handwriting, which is awesome. I loved breaking down certain people's mind with their signature. It was so interesting. It made me so happy, and I just adored this book. I mean, they talk about Ted Bundy, talk about Donald Trump. Oof. They talk about, who else do they talk about? Bonnie and Clyde. They talk about, what's his name? Author of The Great Gatsby. F. Scott Fitzgerald. They talk about a lot of people, and it was fascinating. It was so fascinating. And they also go into the Zodiac Killer. Yeah. I have a problem. I really love this book. Really love this book. This is so fascinating. I adore it. Adore it. Super love. Now, then we have a short story collection coming in at number 9. This is Her Body and Other Parties. This is by Cameron Maria Machado. I have requested her memoir that is coming out this year, and I was told I would get it, so I am very hopeful that it happens. I'm very excited because it will be coming from Grey Wolf Press, whom I love and I've worked with several times. This has a sticker on it. Why does this have a sticker on it? Oh, I can't get the sticker off. Okay. This short story collection is creepy in a lot of different ways. It holds a lot of feminist aspects to it. It holds a lot of conversations about the female figure and the female rights and life in general. But it also can hold and carry some very interesting weight as far as just basic world stuff goes. There's one story which is an apocalyptic story in which a woman is going through her sexual partners throughout her life. while the apocalypse is going on, and she's discussing her sex life to you while the apocalypse is going on. So she's not obsessing about the apocalypse, she's obsessing about her partners, and you're just finding out little odds and ends in the background of what's happening and how the world is falling apart, and she's just like in her own world. There's my all-time favorite short story, which is, I think, yes, The Husband's Stitch. I can't tell you what is a retelling of, but it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And then the other one I really loved is Especially Heinous, which is the longest short story, and it uses titles from Law and Order Special Victims Unit to create a short story with those characters, but it's sci-fi. It was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. So I would definitely recommend this. It was fabulous. Then we have My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Atesha Mosvik. I've done a review of this. I will link it up in the cards. I have already been talking for 6 minutes, so I'm not going to harp on this. But this is a brilliant book about a woman with depression, anxiety, and severe grief. I really loved it. She takes pills to try and numb herself for a year, and a lot of people are claiming she's very privileged. But she's privileged in some way, but as far as being a neurotypical person, I don't think she's privileged in that way. I think she has a lack of privilege in the neurotypical sense. I really enjoyed it. Piles of books are happening. This one will probably come as no surprise. This is Shirley Jackson, The Bird's Nest. You guys know that this is, I love Shirley Jackson. She is one of my all-time favorite authors. I read all of her books last year. I will link my discussion of Shirley Jackson up in the cards. This one is my favorite. I like it because it's a pretty accurate depiction of DID, or dissociative identity disorder. And yeah, it's brilliant. It's really wonderful. And I definitely would say if you go into this knowing that it's DID, I feel like you get a lot more out of the book rather than if you're feeling like you're just going crazy. It works. It works both ways. If you feel like I ruined it for you, I'm very sorry. But I think that going into it knowing that is actually really beneficial. And watching the decay of her mind is just really interesting. Then we have Hunger by Roxane Gay. Yes. I love this book. I love this book so much. So much. This book talks about weight. It talks about taking up space. It talks about your right to take up space. It talks about your right to have safe sexuality. It talks about your right to have control over your body. It talks about rights. It's just is awesome. It's amazing. I absolutely adore it. I highly recommend it. And if you haven't read it yet, then it's high time you did. It's hard to read. It's very emotional and very tedious, but not tedious. Tedious is the wrong word. Touching? Touching would be a better word. It's very touching, but it's a lot of work to get through. It's a lot of work, but for a good payoff. Woo! So many books. This one will come as no surprise. Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. Mental health turned into comedy. Pretty self-explanatory. I really love this book. I think it is one of the best books that you can possibly read if you have a loved one with mental health issues, to kind of orient yourself with how their mind may work. This is definitely the best I've found as far as helping someone understand your mindset without trying to forcibly read them to read nonfiction that's more clinical. This just sort of turns it into a comedy where you can kind of laugh at the fact that there's mental health issues, but it does get serious and explains to you pretty accurately what anxiety and depression really look like. She has other issues, but she focuses mostly on those two more universal feelings. This was a big help to me, and I think it would be a big help to anyone who has a loved one with mental health issues. My list is just, it's a lot. My list is a lot. This one has a sticker too. This is Speak by Laura Halse Anderson. This is the 50th edition, I think. 20th. This is the 20th anniversary edition. Which means I was 9 when this book came out. And I discovered it when I was 14. 14? 13. I discovered this book when I was 13. Yeah. I discovered it right at the right time. This is the story of a girl who is raped and then is not believed and kind of goes through her life not really telling anybody. Well, no, she's not believed. She just doesn't tell anybody. She does what I did. But she comes out quicker than I did. And it's a building, dark, twisted, hard to read plot. It's really emotionally draining. It's grappling. It's amazing. It's absolutely brilliant. I highly recommend it. If you are at all interested in coming to a mindset where you can understand what it feels like to be holding the secret in of sexual assault, this is something special and really easy to digest. It's hard, but it's easy to digest. Now we're up to the top 3. Coffee break. So number 3, I have so many copies of this one, and I have so many copies of number 2. I need more copies of number 1. This is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I adore this book. This comes in at number 3. I have not read this edition. It's gorgeous though. Do you see how pretty this is? It's so pretty. It has a sticker on it. This one's coming off. Ha. Ha. Ha ha. Ha. I win. I got one sticker off. Oh, it has an imprint of the leather. That's interesting. If you don't know what Jane Eyre is, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's a love story, kind of. It's feminist. It's very, very bold for the Victorian era, especially coming from a woman. It has some really amazing ideas in it and really bold concepts. I really love it. I think it is one of the best books ever written. And I've read this every year, I think, for the last 5 years. I read this in junior high when I had mono, and I loved it, but I didn't own my own copy, so I just kind of went without it for a while, and then I picked up a copy in the Rhodes edition, in the Rhodes Classics edition, and I reread it, and I loved it, and then I knew it was my second favorite book of all time, because I already had a number 1. Number 1 got pushed aside a few years ago, but I already had a number 1. And this just became incredible. It became a huge part of my life. It became a huge aspect of my life. I really connected to certain characters. Jane in some facets, but also a side character. Extremely hard. Like, I really felt for her. And I think you're not supposed to as much as I did. Like, I really felt very strongly about that. So, this is brilliant. I absolutely love it. It's the story of a woman who becomes a governess and after having a very rough childhood and falls in love with the man who's hired her. And it's an interesting love story. It's very interesting. I'm not sure I feel 100% good about the main love interest, but you know, that's fine. This was number 1 for years. This is Alison Wonderland. This one is And Through the Looking Glass. So this is the Barnes & Noble edition, I believe. I have so many editions. Look how pretty! Look at those end papers. Do you see how pretty this is? I have this one also done in a music box style. It sounds weird, but I literally have it as a music box. Where is it? There it is. I want this tattooed on me. So bad. So bad. This is what I want tattooed on me right there. Yes. So, this is Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. I prefer Alice in Wonderland to Through the Looking Glass, but I enjoy both. Through the Looking Glass would not be on my top 10. Alice would. This story is nonsense and beautiful and wonderful and very different. And it holds a very strong place in my heart. I can remember listening to it on record when I was little and just adoring it. I don't know who the narrator was, but that's the narrator I fell in love with. I now own it on audio with Jim Dale narrating it, which is totally fine. I love Jim Dale. So this is the story of Alice who follows a rabbit down a rabbit hole and finds Wonderland. And things start to magically occur. It's really fun. I love it. I really love this book. I have so many copies. So many. And I have so many trinkets of Alice in Wonderland, some of which you guys have given me, which I love, and I have them in my Alice collection over there. I have a nice Alice collection. And it's got all my little trinkets. And I love it so much. Oh, I love Alice in Wonderland. My favorite book of all time, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Now, I have a very complicated relationship with this book. When I was 14, there was a girl in my school who was this brooding, angsty, dark, creative, like purple hair, dark eyeliner, ripped jeans kind of girl. Like, she was something else, and I thought she was terrifying. And her favorite book was The Bell Jar, and I thought she was so deep and feminist and bold, and I thought she was, like, I was terrified of her, but I really thought, like, she was the coolest chick, and she knew exactly who she was, and oh my god, I envied her so much. And I was like, I will never love The Bell Jar as much as she does, because I am nowhere near as deep as she is. And then I came to terms with my illness, and I came to terms with my past, and I started to open up my mind and accept the fact that I was intelligent, and accept the fact that I had a mind. And I found The Bell Jar as an option. I picked it up, and I read it for the Booktubeathon, which now has a new name, 2 years ago, and I fell in love, and I understood it, and it made sense to me, and it felt deeply emotionally connecting, and it felt dark, and it felt scary, and it felt wonderful, and it felt immensely honoring to, like, love it so much. I just, for the first time in my life, was like, oh my god, I'm that girl that loves The Bell Jar, and I have depth. And I was so proud of myself. I felt so completed. And this book has just stood by me since I read it. I've read it again since, and it held up. I plan to read it again this year during whatever the Booktubeathon is called now. I want to get more editions of it, especially one that's less pretty than this, because I want to mark it up, or I'll get one more pretty than this and I can mark this one up. But I haven't marked it up yet because it's my only copy, and I feel very, very, very protective of this copy because it's my first copy. Yeah. Yeah. This is about a girl named Esther who has a breakdown, and she ends up in a psych ward, which I believe is based on, what's it called? It's in Massachusetts. It's a psych ward in Massachusetts. I can't remember, but they're a very famous psych ward, and they also were the psych ward that took Suzanne, the author of Girl Interrupted, which was also based in that place. So there's a lot of artists who have ended up in that psych unit. McLean. There it is. McLean. So there's a lot of artists who have ended up in McLean for different psych reasons, and it's got a lot of fame and notoriety, and it's supposed to be one of the best in the country. I've heard mixed reviews, but it's inspired a lot of people to get creative, and explore their psyche. So that's my favorite book of all time. Those are my top 10. I feel very nervous putting that out there, but that's my top 10. If anyone has questions about any of the books that I have mentioned today, go ahead and talk to me in the comments. I would love to discuss with you. Thank you so much to my Patreons. I will talk to you all in my next video, and I'll see you then. Bye.